Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. And today, well, I got a bunch of guests with me from all over the world. We got a couple guests from the UK, Josh and Glenn, and we've got Rob Twohy here in the States. And in Australia, once again, Phil is with us. So, and some of you guys have been on before, so welcome back.
Thanks, Harris.
And,
yep, great to be here. Thanks, Dave.
I didn't actually connect the name right away, Phil, so when you came on, I'm like, hey, I know that guy.
yeah, that's right. Working on the Rex Draconis stuff with Richard Anak and Michael Watt. So
yeah, I think this is like 254 or something for these. So after a while, people start blending together. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
But yeah, welcome, gentlemen. I don't know what time of day it is for you guys. I'm sure it's like all over the place. But we're here to talk about Monsters Without Borders. I love the name. It's an interesting project. It's in the DM's Guild, and obviously it's about monsters, but it's about a little bit more than that. Who wants to get into that?
Yeah, I can. I can start with that. So, Monsters Without Borders. The actual name was come from Joshua himself, actually, just down there. We were picking over ideas, and it just it came out of nowhere. And it's what it is 20 monsters from Monsters of the Guild, which is a 119 monster compendium, which is going to be coming out in probably a couple of weeks' time. I think we've got that in about 2 weeks' time. And these 20 monsters are all being released for free, or you can pick them up, pay what you want. But if you do decide to pay some money, for the product, the money will go to 50% of the money will go to Doctors Without Borders.
Cool. That's a great cause. And how did you guys come up with that? Like, we're not the name itself, but the actual project. What prompted it?
Again, that would be me. There's a Facebook group that all of us happen upon quite often during the week called DM's Guild Fan Club, I think it's called, isn't it? Yeah. And yeah, there's a lot of us creators from the DM's Guild on there, and we regularly share ideas or things which we're about to launch. And I decided I just popped up at middle of last year and suggested to everybody that we gather up all of these monsters that we've got hidden away in these awesome products all over the guild and turn it into one complete package, so that anyone who comes to the guild, they want a glut of new monsters that they've never seen before. They don't have to go hunting through over 100 different products to find them, just in one place. And when I opened up the conversation, immediately I think we had about 20 creators sign up just on the dot, just on the spur of the moment. And ever since then, it's just been getting bigger and bigger.
It's about 160 pages, and I wouldn't say monsters we haven't seen before, because I've seen a lot of the monsters in there from previous editions.
Oh yeah, I think there was a couple, wasn't there? Like a Pesh, I think, was one of them. I believe.
Eye of the Deep. I'm always the Arrow Demon. I'm always a fan of seeing the older monsters make their way back into the current edition. So
yeah, they were really cool as well in the book. They look really nice.
Do you guys want to go around and talk about your contribution and maybe why you got involved with the project? I'll start with I'll work my way from the bottom to the top as I see you guys. So Josh.
Hi. Yeah. So I'm probably a bit of a weird place to start, to be honest, because I didn't really come into about halfway through. So Glenn had this initial idea, as he said, and he posted it to the Dungeon Masters Guild fan club on Facebook. I saw that and I threw him a couple of monsters. Well, probably too many monsters, to be honest.
A lot.
I threw him a load of monsters and said, do what you want with them, and kind of figured that would be the end of it. And then time went on and progress was being made, but it looked like it was slowing down a bit. And I kind of naively said, oh, is this going to be out before Christmas? Where are we at with this? And Glenn kind of got in contact with me and said, look, no way is it going to be out by Christmas. We've still got art to do. We need to think about layout, X, Y, Z. And Glenn's a guy with big plans, which is remarkable and nice to have in a group. So at that point, I kind of helped Glenn to plan out the following steps and kind of take over from him in terms of corralling all the creators and getting them to get the right formatting on their monsters, X, Y, Z, until we had a proper solid database of what we knew was going into the book, and we could push forward with other ideas, essentially.
Awesome. Phil?
Yeah, so I contributed a few of the monsters in there, but for the most part, my role's been the layout for the book. So I've been pretty much getting all the data that Josh and Glenn collected from all these different creators and formatting it and putting it into the layout to make it all look pretty, and not just for the PDF, because this is going to a print on demand option as well. So we've had to make the layout for the print, which is a whole new level, a big learning curve for myself, but it was really good. And yeah, I think it's turned out pretty well so far.
Awesome. I mean, that's a big part of the project right there, layout.
So they're very time consuming.
Hey, how about you, Rob?
When Glenn posted the thing initially, I saw it, and I'm always lurking about everywhere in regards to the DM's Guild, because everybody knows my big thing is to swoop in and ask if I can do the Fantasy Grounds conversion. So I was in since the beginning, but I'm basically the last piece of the puzzle, because after the whole thing is done and there's no more editing and it's completely finished, they turn it over to me, and then I do the Fantasy Grounds conversion for it. So I did that for Monsters Without Borders, and then I'm just ready now, like within the next even hours or days soon, to start work on the Fantasy Grounds module for the full version, of which I have up behind me. Here's the hardback book. You can see it back there. But that's just the test print, so that's not the real one. And then once I do that, we'll have that piece of the puzzle done and be able to get the whole thing out at the same time. The PDF will come out with the hardback, and the Fantasy Grounds module will all be out at the same time.
Sweet. And Glenn, that leaves you, but I mean, you kind of weighed in already. You kind of corralled everything, put it together. Are there favorite monsters that you guys, either someone else has done or you brought in, or like, this is a great opportunity because this monster needs to be in 5e?
Well, for me, I've said this before several times, but the infernal obelisk, which actually I can show you a little picture of it if you can see it. Yeah, that's better. It's quite gorgeous looking. Basically, it's just a tall black obelisk which has 4 sides, 4 eyes, 3 tentacles, crab-like legs, and shoots rays of just about everything you can conceive at people. It's kind of like a big, huge, tall obelisk beholder. It's quite cool.
It reminds me of Alexa. I don't know if you've seen the Alexa turret memes that have been going around.
Yeah. It's a great monster. But...
So, actually, there are some things in the book that aren't monsters, which I just got reminded from the chat. Brian Smith, I see you've included Paladin Oath. In my game tonight, I'll be making my oath. Any tip on how to make it epic?
Cool. Yeah, I mean that Paladin Oath is it's a sort of collaboration between me and I forgot my dice.com, I believe. It's written into the book if you download it. And it's quite a fun paladin, to be fair. It's all about humanitarian aid, and it's very closely linked to Doctors Without Borders. And that's the reason why it went in there. And it was massively based on the, not Oath of Hospitaller from the 4th edition, but there was a, you have to forgive me, I never used 4th edition, but when I'd done a search for Hospitaller Knights, I came across that as a in the 4th edition D&D. I dug it out, had a look to see what it was all about, and I kind of closely mimicked that Paladin Oath in it. It's a fun oath. So
it's similar to a conversion.
Yeah, basically it's a conversion. Yeah.
You guys also included a couple of backgrounds as well, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Again, very closely linked to Doctors Without Borders.
So, what are the backgrounds?
You got a alms giver, which is just someone going around doing good, and also a healer as well. So I wrote the alms giver, but the healer was taken from a lady called Nikita, who's a creator on the guild. So I knew I wanted a healer in the book, so I just done a quick search over DM's Guild to see, if anyone had done a healer before, so that I could approach them. And there was a load of them coming. Oh, so many people who've done healers. So I had to buy a load, read through them, and just kind of choose my favourite one. And luckily, my favourite one that Nikita wrote, she came back to me within a few days straight away, and she said, "Yeah, stick it in there. She'd be, honoured."
So the Game Master Stop has a pretty good question. How did you go from "this is an idea I have" to "let's support Doctors Without Borders"?
I could answer that, but do you want to have a go at it, Phil? Or
I think this is something that was one of the big aims of the project from the get-go, from the beginning. Glen was very, very, very adamant that he wanted to have a charity component to it. Originally, it was only going to be one big book, the Monsters of the Guild, and there was going to be a portion of that went to a charity, which we hadn't chosen at the time. But then we decided we'd like to put out an earlier, smaller version of the book in PDF format, pay what you want. That way that it'll allow people to give what they want to the charity. It gives them the option to give more or less or whatever they can afford, and we thought that was a better solution. And everything that we would have made as creators, I think it's 50% on the DM's Guild goes to Doctors Without Borders. So that's what we decided to do. And then obviously the larger book coming out 3 weeks, Glenn? I'm not sure.
Yeah, 3 weeks we hope. But we chose Doctors Without Borders. It was I put up a load of charities up on our Facebook group when we created Monsters of the Guild Facebook group, and I got all the creators and anybody who was paying any attention just to vote on it. And Doctors Without Borders came well top. So.
Yeah, I think because it was an international charity as well, and we've got creators from all over the world, so they wanted, I guess, something that resonated with them, something that they could see helping out from an international level.
That makes sense too.
That was important for me in particular as well.
Yeah, because I guess one of the things I instantly thought about was I thought it was an interesting choice because it's different than a lot of the choices that we've seen in the past. Because a lot of times it's like some of the same charities, so it was kind of cool that it was a different one, and it's a good charity to support.
Yeah, definitely.
So there is the PDF that's up on the DM's Guild right now. Then you guys will be releasing the print on demand book. Will there also be a PDF for that as well, or is it just print on demand?
Yeah, no, there will definitely be a PDF for that as well, and also Fantasy Grounds module as well. They're two different books in terms of the pay what you want version that is up at the moment is only 20 monsters with 2 backgrounds and the Paladin Oath. The larger book has got 119 monsters in there and a whole bunch more text. There's heaps in there, yeah.
Yeah. So Josh, what kind of task was this corralling everybody?
One of epic proportion, I would say. So I forget what the total number of creators now is. Can you guys remember? Is it 6?
47?
47.
47.
Yeah.
So to begin with, we didn't really have, I think we said before we had about 20 to begin with. And we kind of had drips and drabs from various people, and none of them were formatted alike, essentially. So my big mission really was to make sure that we had a Google Drive, is what we elected to use, just filled with folders and folders and subcategories, filled with all of the individual documents and stat blocks. So we needed to collect obviously the stat blocks for each monster. We need to collect descriptions for each monster, and a little bit about their origin if they'd already been published somewhere else. So essentially that involved reaching out to everyone on the Facebook group, and then when 25% of people didn't read the post or forgot to do it, reaching out to them individually and saying, oh, could you just add this, could you just add this? And then after that, it was a case of going through, having a look at where the gaps were in terms of CR and in terms of creature type, and seeing if we could fill those with other people's work, and also the art order, which was, as you can imagine, massive.
Now, the art that you guys use, is it stuff that's on the DM's Guild? You have stuff commissioned?
So all of it, I think all of it was commissioned work. We've got 5 or 6 artists on it. I can't
7 artists.
7, okay. Yeah, so we reached out to a lot of people. Some of them, Glenn, I think you knew before. Some of them were commissioned through Fiverr, the app Fiverr. But all of them have got this really great sort of old school feel to them, and that's something that we tried to channel throughout the book, is this sort of almost harkening all the way back to TSR days.
And that's one of the things that I did notice, is it's a very much a the like first, second edition line drawings.
That's right. Yeah. So we wanted it to be like a notebook or a sketchbook of an adventurer, in a way, something that someone had gone out into the world, made all these, met these monsters, written down what they'd known about them, and then included sort of sketches of them. And so I think we managed to do that through the art, and some of the art we've got in there is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and that was one of the main drives for the layout as well, to make it look like there was like scrap notes and like a scrapbook almost, all the way through it.
So which cover are you guys going with?
So we've got 2 separate ones, haven't we? So we've got the Monsters Without Borders one, is that big sort of lizardy eye, and there we go. Yeah, Glenn there has the Monsters of the Guild one, which is a Beeholder.
Okay. So they're essentially separate books then.
Yeah, in a way. So Monsters Without Borders, I think everything other than the Paladin Oath and the 2 backgrounds that's in Monsters Without Borders comes from the big book Monsters of the Guild, but it's an opportunity for people to, as we've talked about, give to charity rather than necessarily directly supporting the creators.
So I kind of dig the eye personally. I if I had to pick a favorite.
That's it. We were kind of tossing and turning between the 2. We couldn't really pick, and then we just thought, well, we can use both. Let's do it.
Yeah, I started off sketching up what I'd like the cover to be, but that was, that got a lukewarm response. Then I went to another artist who's a very good friend of mine, who started working on this version, and he was building it up at the time, and I think everyone got really excited about it. But in the background, the same artist, his name's Nerdarchy, he was also working on the eye, and that was me and him doing a little secret project together, going, wouldn't it be great if we could have that and maybe give everybody an option, because we got everybody to vote on it again. And but everyone voted for the Beeholder, and we just had the eye lying around as a piece of art which we weren't going to use. And then it came to the point where we said that we were going to release Monsters Without Borders, and then that piece of art came back to the front again. So we kind of we shushed it up a little bit, and we turned it into the cover for Monsters Without Borders. And actually, as it turns out, I love it too. I think it's great.
Yeah, they're both great, and I guess I'm leaning towards the eye only because we've had a glut of Beholders lately.
Yeah.
Everything's Xanathars, isn't it?
Yeah, the Xanathars, the monster manual itself. The eye is fresh. And it also reminds me of, I think it was 3rd edition, monster manual.
I was just about to say that. It's kind of
4 or 5 or something.
Yeah,
I've seen it.
Game Master Stop. Is there a price yet for the big book?
Yeah, there's several prices, obviously, because it's...
First, how much do you have?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're looking at $14.95 for the PDF, Monsters of the Guild. We're looking for $19.95 for the Fantasy Grounds, is that right, Rob?
Yes.
Yeah. And we're also looking at $29.95 for the hardback book, 160 pages. However, if you buy the hardback book and the PDF together, Sorry, if you buy a hardback book, you can buy the PDF for $5 on top of that if you want it.
Oh, 29. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, once you get past the postage, it's about right, to be honest with you. Unless you live in Australia.
Yeah. That's why I don't have one of the test prints.
What was it, Phil, for the shipping for that? It was some crazy.
It was more than the book itself. Yeah. I think it was like $35 or something.
We do monthly contests and we ship international on that, and every month we're like, not UK Australia, not UK Australia, not UK Australia. We're like, oh, like I'm told actually Japan is the most expensive to ship to, but we haven't shipped.
Oh, really?
Someday we may find out.
Oh dear.
So, Game Master Stop has another question. He wants to know. They want to know the big book. Can you donate to Doctors Without Borders when you buy that as well?
That's actually a good idea. We could actually create a link, but if I think probably what we're planning on doing is providing a link from Monsters of the Guild back to Monsters Without Borders on the product page, so that people can immediately just redirect if they want to give anything to Monsters Without Borders. They can, but that unfortunately would be over and above what you would pay for Monsters of the Guild anyway. When we went into this, we had a set amount that we wanted to, a target basically, what we wanted to hit to donate to Doctors Without Borders, and that was $500, I think. And we said that if we didn't hit $500 for Monsters Without Borders, then we would use Monsters of the Guild to donate to the charity. But I don't know if anyone's been following us. We absolutely blasted past that, and in fact, it's now standing at $1,500, which we're donating to Doctors Without Borders.
We were going to send you doctors for help. Instead, have a beholder.
Instead, you get a beholder, right? Yeah.
The charity warned us this was going to happen. They warned us that we were going to confuse the two.
Yeah. It happens. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
The name seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah. So do you guys have favorite parts of the project?
Mine's easy to answer. I think everybody knows what it is. I do have a favorite monster, though. I do. There's a monster in there that's called the ooze dragon. Is that right, you guys?
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of even contention about my choice, because the reason I like it is that it is a crazy powerful, like, will kill you in a heartbeat monster, but the artwork for it, to me, spoke to me like a little puppy. And so I thought, oh, isn't he cute? And then you read the stats and you're like, oh, so I'm going to be dead even before I finish this stat block, you know? But I really like the Ooze Dragon. I think it's fantastic.
You've got it there.
Oh, yeah, the Ooze Dragon is a cutie. You're like, oh, look, it's so adorable.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happened to me when I saw it.
And your face is gone.
CR21 or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah.
My favourite part of the project was definitely doing or seeing the sketches come in for each individual monster, because we redid every single sketch. We were taking some, some of the products we took these monsters from had full color art, like gorgeous color art for some of the monsters, like the Tempest Beast, and we kind of like downgraded it in a way with our sketches. But it's still come out looking absolutely gorgeous. And as the artists were putting in their monsters, it's a bit like Christmas. Every single time a new sketch arrived, what was their interpretation of the description? So it was really, really cool. And the artists, I think, are also just the same as all the creators, have been really vocal to us about how kind of how up they were for this whole project, and they were going to be putting in, they were going to be buying the book as well and giving it out to their parents and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for me,
guys.
Yeah, sorry. For me, my favorite part was probably obviously doing the layouts. I was able to really get quite intimately involved with each of the monsters. Line by line, I was copying them over and adjusting them and fixing up the formatting to make sure it was standard throughout the book, and I got to really know a lot of these monsters and just discovering them, and then discovering some of the Absolutely. Probably hidden talent that is out there in the guild is amazing. There's so much genius in some of these monsters. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And so that was probably my favorites, discovering people who I knew were creating, but didn't really realize how good some people really were. So it was really cool.
What about you, Josh?
I think for me, the biggest reward was having a break from adventure writing, probably. So up until this, I'd only really done adventures. I dabbled a little bit here and there with the odd player supplement and stuff like that, but my bread and butter is adventures, and so it was nice just to have a bit of a break from that and learn some new skills. I help fill out here and there now and then with a layout. I've done a little bit of Photoshop stuff for it to neaten up pieces of artwork, that sort of thing. So it was just a nice opportunity to flex some different muscles.
Nice. The player options are harder, in my opinion, because like if you mess up and make a mistake with DM options, they don't live in your game very long. But when you screw up a player option, like that player could be there for the whole campaign, and then you have to figure out what to do.
Especially class, man. Archetypes, classes, I think they're probably the hardest thing to do.
Yeah, I think you've really got to pay attention on those sort of things to balance. You know, if you shoot the CR of a creature wrong by a couple here or there, you know, DMs will pretty quickly realise that they've, you know, maybe bitten off a bit more than they can chew and just cut the hit points in half or something like that. But you know, if all of a sudden all of your pals around the table are doing like 20 damage around or whatever, and you're there stabbing in for a healthy 3, it's going to be pretty obvious that something's gone wrong.
Oops.
Yeah.
So what is the CR spread in the book?
Big. So I think the lowest is an 8th, and then I think the highest is 23, 24 maybe. I can double check now.
The lowest is an 8th. There's a kobold in there.
An 8th.
Oh, 8th. Okay.
Yeah. Crazy high kobold.
I was gonna say that is a terrifying kobold.
20, challenge rating 26 is our highest.
And which one's that?
That's the Mershal.
Ah, sure. Yeah. So that's one of mine anyway.
Yeah.
I'm quite interested now. What's the lowest? Oh yeah, we've got some zeros as well. So our zeros are the elemental core, which is essentially just a mote of elemental energy which powers some other monsters in the book, and the Mind Flayer tadpole, which is
one of Travis's.
Yeah, that's it, Travis's, and you know what it is. It's the little thing that burrows into your mind and turns you into, through ceramorphosis or whatever it's called, into a Mind Flayer. And then at the high end is Mershok, which is the Yuan-Ti sort of demon god, which I wrote up for one of my campaigns in the past.
So, folks, remember, if you have questions, just put question in front of it. It makes it easier to pick out. I know you guys over on Twitch are newer to the stream, so it just makes it easier because I'm looking at all of the chat all together. So, how many monsters does it end up being?
119 in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 119 monsters. We hit every single monster type.
Nice. Was it tough to figure out any of them, or were you looking to fill any particular niches when you set out, or was it like, you know, as long as we hit all the CRs, just send me whatever?
To be honest with you, I don't think we were paying much attention to the CRs in the beginning. We were paying a lot of attention to the types so that we could fill, niches that, as you say, and little gaps here and there. And when we started looking at the spread of the CRs, we realised inadvertently, quite serendipitously, we had created a listed a bunch of monsters with a very wide spread of CRs. We saw a few little gaps, and towards the end, I think when we were looking around for a final, I think it was about 20 monsters just to finish off the book, we were effectively going out to the community and asking for individual monsters. You know, like, have you got a have you got an elemental of CR of 1812 or above, and things like this.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I had someone at my front door.
No worries. So, I had a question, but I lost it. But I do have a question from Game Master Stop. He's got a lot of them, which is great. Did I also hear something about a module? Are you guys creating a module based on this idea?
Yeah, I assume that means Fantasy Grounds module. And yes, we are, of course. Or does he mean, are we creating an adventure module for the monsters?
So I kind of took it as adventure module, but it could be the other one as well, I guess.
So it depends on what he means by module, but
if it's Fantasy Grounds, yes. As far as is there any plans for any further collaboration? I guess would be the question then.
I don't know if these guys have put up with me again.
Well, it's funny. I'd never even thought of that. That's actually kind of a fantastic idea, but I think that's like saying, would you make an adventure out of the monster manual? Maybe, but
it's a lot of
that's a lot of monsters.
Well, of course, a lot of these already come from their own. Part of how we sourced this was people asking for already published stuff. So loads of them already come from best-selling adventures that you could go out and buy. And I suppose there would be some scope for using, groups of them in new adventure modules. But yeah, as Rob says, it would just be like grabbing a random handful out of the monster manual and saying, yeah, here's the core of the adventure.
And look, the best thing about this is that anybody publishing on the DM's Guild can use these monsters in their future adventures. So anybody who wants to publish on the Guild can get any of these monsters and insert them in there.
Yeah, so please, let's see an adventure with the Infernal Obelisk. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Quick.
All the infernal obelisks everywhere. So Brian Smith wants to know, does this book just contain a large collection of D&D creatures already existing in other materials, or is there new stuff?
There's new stuff.
There's stuff.
So
there's new stuff. There's I think there was about you know this better than I do actually, Phil. I think it was about 60% of the monsters, were they, from actual
something like that. I'd literally have to go through and count them manually, I think, at this point. But there's probably about between 60 and 75% published monsters, and the rest is unpublished new monsters. And when we say published monsters, we mean published on DM's Guild, not necessarily anything from D&D's past. Some of them are completely new monstrosities and creations from the minds of the brilliant authors on the DM's Guild. So, yeah.
So Shadzar wants to know, will any of these monsters be in The Haunt Part 2? Which I don't even know what that is. So.
The Haunt is probably one of my biggest adventures. The doll is in this book. The Haunt 2 is in production at the moment. Travis Legge is putting that together, working with me for that. The doll will make a return.
Oh no.
It will live on.
Phil's adventure, Dave, the Haunt, was actually featured in Dragon Plus. So many people know. Yeah, it's the word's been out other than just the DM's Guild about that, and so people were calling for Part 2. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to confess, Nerdarchy generally homebrews everything, and like we buy like all the official books and hardly use any of them. Just or we pick them apart and steal little bits from them.
Yeah.
So, James Leslie, is there any suggestion or tips you have for someone wanting to publish on the DM's Guild?
I think in a big part it depends on what you want to publish, because there's different ways to go about different things. One of the biggest recommendations I would have would be to join those Facebook groups if you've not already. So the Dungeon Masters Guild fan club's a big one, and the Dungeon Masters Guild Creators Circle, something like that. Those pages are filled with so many people that are just like egging to give people advice. They're really, really good blokes and girls and everyone that they just want to help, really. And the more we can put into the guild, the better it is for everyone. It's kind of a common ground, because the more people that get to the guild, the more kind of revenue flowing through it. It just makes the place better for everyone.
It does, yeah.
So we've had Sean McGovern on. He, you know, one of his, I guess not. I want to say complaints, but not really complaints. Is that there's so many great creators on the DMs Guild that that don't get found.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that can be the case, but then it's projects like this one that we hope will allow people to get found. And there's other people working on similar things. So MT Black's just started doing his is it called Dungeon Tales, his new project. So he's collecting adventures from other people, I believe, and sort of almost magazining them up together.
That's kind of what I said to Sean when he had said that. I says, I think somebody's starting to grab them and put them together, so that people can kind of get like collections of them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and it helps helps spread the love and get the exposure out there.
Yeah.
Of
course, the Facebook groups are another great way to find people. You know, you will. It's inevitable. You have to do some digging, but then it's half the fun, isn't it? I suppose.
So now, currently, you're not allowed to do any branding in the DMs Guild anymore, right?
Yeah, they don't want you to brand on the cover, but you can obviously inside any item that you make. But yeah, they had a big melt. I had the biggest heart attack of anybody because I had literally the day before they announced that allegedly they had this policy all along, but they weren't enforcing it. And then I went and put my stupid purple logo all over like 65 covers. And then next day they were like, take him down. And I thought, I caused it. It was me. But they allege no, it wasn't. But yeah, they just don't want you to put your brand on the cover. You can use the DMs Guild logo, and definitely not anything WotC. And you can use the Fantasy Grounds logo if it's a Fantasy Grounds item. But other than that, they don't want your personal logo or anything on the cover.
Yeah. You can stick your name on, you can still represent yourself. You just can't throw up kind of logos to your own like publishing companies or websites or anything like that.
No branding.
No branding.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets a little bit grey there, I think, once people do start knowing the name as well. It's always a brand, doesn't it? So
kind of like, piggybacking off of James's question, what do you guys do in order to get your name out there so people find your stuff on the DMs Guild?
Collaborate is probably a big one. Collaborate with as many people as you can, I suggest. I've done it since I've begun, and it's been one of the biggest payoffs for me. And Twitter, blast out on Twitter.
Yeah, there's a ton of new community projects which have kind of blossomed. I mean, there've always been community projects going on in the DMs Guild anyway, especially in the DMs Guild fan club. But since Monsters of the Guild has kind of gathered momentum, it's dragged quite a lot more people into thinking that actually community projects like this one is a really, really good way of getting their content out there, or at least kind of getting a little bit of content out there to get their to dip their toe in the water to see what it's like. And a few of those community projects, just to whet your taste buds on that, there's a community project called Artifacts of the Guild, which is basically very similar to what Monsters of the Guild is, but it's just artifacts. And that's been run by Emmett Byrne, I think. There's also Dungeoneers Pack, which is crumbs. What is the Dungeoneers Pack? That one, I can't remember exactly what goes into it, but there's Places of the Guild, obviously just places across the guild. There's also Surviving the Feywild by Matt Butler. That's growing. Oh my God, that's such a big project that they've taken on there. They're looking at really fleshing out the entire Feywild, almost replicating the Sword Coasts in the Feywild. And all the people, it's huge. I've put in a couple of monsters and little bits here and there, but some of those people, they're writing tens of thousands of words for that project. But there are many projects like that still if you go into one of these Facebook groups that you can kind of just ask someone about. They'll point you towards one of them, and hopefully within a few minutes, you'll have a whole long list of things which need to be done. And just pick one: a monster, a magic ring, whatever you want to do, and then you can be part of this really awesome project.
That's right.
I know, Rob, you do a lot of streaming.
I do. I stream 5 days a week now, down from 6 or 7 from before.
Slacker.
Yeah, I'm slacking. Yeah. But yeah, I do stream, and I can't wait for when we're done with this to get some of these monsters on stream and let people see them in action.
Yeah, and so I feel like like one of the conversations we had with Sean was like the fact that and that's kind of why I asked, is like he's like, it's so hard for these people that are coming in, because he's like, I got a blog and a YouTube channel, so it makes it easier so people know who I am. And it's like with anything you do, it's one thing to do the thing, but then you need to actually market it and get people to find it.
Yeah, I think I'm probably like the worst example here of how not to do it, because I'm too lazy. I can't be bothered. All I want to do is write. I'm probably the worst marketer I can think of out of everyone I know that publishes on the Guild, because for me it's just a case of I'll publish it, and then like I'll remember a day later to tell people I've published it. I'll just post it everywhere I can think on Facebook, retweet it once or twice on Twitter, and then call it a day. My hope is that people eventually stumble across it, will buy one, and then just think, oh, this is so amazing, I'll buy the rest of it.
I coined the phrase for that. That is the Field of Dreams method.
If you build it, they will come.
Yeah, and I don't recommend that method at all.
Yeah, well, it's so clearly evidenced as well, because I was speaking to Florian today, who he came up with the idea for Shore of Dreams, which is an adventure that he hired me to write for him in a collaboration. And that's sold, I think, 850 copies now. And then my bestsellers are somewhere around 200. So if I could be bothered to put in the work to market it, I'm sure I could have, gold bestsellers all over the shop. But I'd rather just write the next one, to be honest.
Yeah. You said you're still in school too, right? You're a student?
Yes. Yeah, I'm a university student. I'm just getting around to finishing my master's now. But yeah, it doesn't really mean anything. I've got so much time on my hands at the minute.
Shadzar says, we heard it here first. Rob is putting the monsters in tonight's games of Tomb of Annihilation.
They're not going to be in there tonight. I don't know what he's trying to do to me. No. I was just going to say, Dave, my method, it took me 2 years to get to this point, because you can't do this at the beginning. But now I've got enough people that I've collaborated with, all of these guys that are on with us now, and a few others, plus my own stuff on the DMs Guild, that now my marketing method is when people approach me to ask me about what's going on, I just go search my name on the DMs Guild. Just put in, I'm so lazy now. I'm just like, just go look it up. So Josh claims to be the worst marketer. I think that would be me. Because I'm so lazy, and everybody talks about, well, how are you lazy? You convert modules 16 hours a day. And I'm like, yeah, but no, I'm lazy. Just trust me. Look at me. I'm lazy.
No, but look, I think that's probably one of the big points in marketing. In being successful in the guild is like what you've done there, Rob, is put out content frequently, put out quality content frequently, and people will see your name. It'll be on the guild, on the front page at some point regularly, and people will they'll remember it,
Yeah, it's true. And someone asked earlier, the person that asked the question, how do you get started, or how do you publish something on the guild? And this sounds trite, and it sounds like I'm being smart about it, but the answer is just do it. Get one thing up there that you can just say to yourself, okay, I went through the process, I made an adventure, or I made a tool, or whatever it might be, and put it up there, and people will tell you, they'll review it or comment on it and tell you, hey, we love this, or maybe change this next time you do it, or something like that. The community is very supportive, but also will let you know if there's something that you can do better. and then just do it again, and just keep going. That would be my advice for anybody. And and all of the other creators, all of us, and all the people that produce things, we love it when other people put stuff up, because it's a whole. All it does is push the hobby forward, so we all love it.
Yeah.
I think
and brings more people to the guild as well, which is good for everybody.
Yeah,
I think I heard someone say, just make something terrible, right? Is the way to get started, because generally whatever the first thing you do isn't going to be your best work. So for whatever reason, whether it's the content or the layout, or you're doing things you don't know how, you've never done before. But you're absolutely right. Just get started. It doesn't matter, because that is the hardest thing, is just breaking your own inertia.
Yeah, that's it. The first thing you put up is always the hardest, just because you've always got that kind of self-doubt and thinking, oh god, it's going to be rubbish, and it will be in comparison to the rest of the work, because every time you do it, through each iteration, it's obviously going to get better. But what you can do with DM's Guild is go back. So look back at it a year later and think, okay, how can I edit this to make it better? Maybe I can do a better layout on it now. Maybe I can update some of the monster stat blocks in it, or create a more vibrant setting for it. And you can do that because it's all electronic now. It's not a book on a shelf somewhere. You can just log in and change it up.
Unless it's Monsters of the Guild, then
unless it's the hardback. Better be good. Better be correct.
Unless it's sitting on the shelf.
Yeah.
But you guys have a lot of veterans on there that have been creating things for a while, and a lot of eyeballs on it, which is only going to help. So what is the proofing process like for you guys for a project like this?
Long. Lots and lots of edits and reviews and tests and test prints, and lots of backwards and forwards. I've spent many hours fixing up lots of issues that the guys have pointed out, looking at you, Josh, and lots of hours. But look, it's necessary. We want to put out the best product we can, and every little detail that we can find. I mean, look, at a point you have to sort of draw a line and say, now we're just drawing at straws, but it's pretty important to get those eyes over it and fix any issues up especially with print, before you print, because it's a lot harder to go back and fix things up for those people who've already bought it and the like. So obviously editing is a big thing, and proofing the layout too, making sure there's no layout issues is big.
I know when I was looking at the playtesters, that list was pretty long. Is this the biggest project you guys have been involved with?
Yeah.
By far, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Easily.
For sure.
I've been involved in, prior to this, probably about a year ago, I was involved in a project called the Ultimate Fantasy Collection, where I went out to, 13 other guild authors, and plucked adventures which I had come across myself, which were no longer in the top 250 rankings in the guild. So that meant no one was ever going to see them ever again. But they had good ratings. So essentially, even though they might have spent, a couple of weeks in the top 50, they gathered a good glut of really interesting, high-scoring kind of ratings. So I reached out to a load of these authors, and I think I must have bought about 50 different adventures and had to read through and kind of work out which ones I wanted. And luckily, I had enough of those authors come back to me for me to put them into a collection. But instead of just like molding them together as a collection, just saying, hey, check these authors out. Sean Merrin was one of the authors inside there as well. And instead of just putting them together and saying, for $10 you can have $30 worth of adventures, fill your boots, go have a load of fun. What I also did was I wrote my own individual review of each adventure, and also wrote about bits about how you could maybe use this in your own campaign, and created a new story arc for a campaign, so that people could play all these adventures together. It was some people said that it was a bit too much work, should have just put them together. But in the end, I really, really loved the process and working with so many people. But even that Monsters of the Guild totally eclipses that work that I've done there.
So were there, I guess any of you could answer this, or all of you, any unexpected surprises from this project?
Oh, I'm gonna have to think on that. There's a lot. There was a lot of unexpected surprises. Layout for one. I mean, working with these fine gentlemen as well. I've worked with them kind of on and off on small. I guess not anything. Anything big on the guild. Maybe just talking about our projects. Maybe just sharing information. But for me, unexpected wise, it was a massive roller coaster to be part of this project, and it was unexpected how kind of tough it was, especially when we were having to bat these proofs around, organize the monsters, contact the authors, choose the monsters in the end, actually choose the ones what we wanted, and then gradually whittle them down to those final 100 to 120 that we actually wanted. That for me was, it was quite difficult. So.
That's actually one of the things I wanted to ask about. What was left on the cutting room floor, that kind of stuff.
I have to wait for Monsters of the Guild too.
Yeah.
They didn't hit the floor. They actually landed in a box.
That's right.
Yeah, I think we took a philosophy that we had so many authors giving us monsters. We had almost 200 monsters in the end that we could make use of. In fact, if we would have pushed it out even further, we would have had a lot more. But ultimately, what we done was we tried to involve every single author who approached us with a monster. So we were trying to balance the CR. We were trying to balance, the types of monsters, and also getting as many people as involved as possible. Because if anything, this Monsters of the Guild was a celebration of the guild and the authors and the quality content that people provide.
So what was the process though for eliminating those monsters? Like Glenn, I guess you're the project manager. Did it fall to you to kind of pick, or did you guys go by consensus, by committee? Because that can always be a nightmare in itself.
I'll let Joshua answer this. It was mainly me and Joshua phoning each other backwards and forwards.
Yeah, so this was when I was deep in my lab work days, and essentially I'd be sitting at the computer trying to type in all my data, and then at the same time be on the phone to Glenn on a second screen. I'd have the list of monsters going up, and we'd just slowly work through essentially each and every one, sort of talk about what we liked about it, what we didn't like about it, and it probably maybe 3 to 5 hours worth of phone calls, I think, something along that line. Going through them and deciding which we like. And as Glenn said, we had the ethos that we try and include everyone that we could. So some people, I'm the biggest culprit for it, sent in like 20 monsters or whatever. And so obviously we cut those kind of things to make room for other people so that we could have a nice diverse group of authors and creators.
I guess that makes for one of the easier cuts anyway. It's like, you got way too many, so we got to narrow this down.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We actually cut one just today for Josh.
Yeah.
So how many author names or monsters inadvertently made it into your lab notes?
Yeah, you wouldn't believe. I'm about to go through it and pass all of that data, so I'll just be scrolling through, weights, numbers, gelatinous cubes, whatever else. I
just imagine, whatever professor is going over your work, and we're like, Beeholder, what does this have to do with?
Yeah, I've got no doubt. Yeah, I'm sure I've slipped up somewhere. I've done it in the past, so.
How much products do each of you have in the guild at this point?
I'll have to look it up.
Lots. I've got an adventure anthology. Yeah. I've got an adventure anthology. It's got 9 adventures, and I've got probably about another 4 or 5 other products outside of the anthology as well. So yeah, I've got a few.
Yeah, I've probably got about 6, I think, last count.
Nice.
I think maybe I think around 20 of my own published adventures, and then maybe half of that again in sort of freelance work that I've done for other people.
So, David, my last name, wants to know, any joke monsters, Vorpal Bunny maybe?
Vorpal Bunny.
I don't think we have any sort of joke monsters, as it were, but there's some that have a comical bent, I would say. There's definitely some with a more comical bent. One of my favourite ones is the Mansky, they're called, which are like little hairless six-limbed cats. And on their own, they're not particularly deadly, but obviously in packs, they're pretty dangerous. And if you kill one, it'll explode in a pink goop, which will cover you and mark you as the target for the rest. I think that's
there's another one.
Potato sack man as well.
Yeah.
I know there's a spider made out of cactuses.
Yeah. There is. Yeah. That's Chris Bissett's from Loot the Room. It's a great monster. And probably another one of my favorites is the Pulpa, which is like this gnomish type. I think it's an undead that sneaks up on you in the middle of the night and dumps its intestines on the floor because it's too heavy, and then jumps up on its victim while they're sleeping and starts eating them, which is really gross, but really quite humorous.
That is pretty nasty. The intestine dump. Ugh.
Yeah. It opens up like its chest, its guts, and just straight onto the ground.
Yeah, that's one of the creepier pieces of artwork. That and the evil doll, I think, are like the couple made in hell, aren't they?
Yeah. Speaking of artwork, I kept meaning to bring this up, but we had talked about it before we got started, and I was looking through. And I was like, hey, that guy looks like Chris Lindsay. And then, I'm reading, I'm like, oh, that's because it is Chris Lindsay. And so in the very beginning of the book, there's like little sketches of everyone that's contributed. So I believe Glenn was guilty of that.
I was, yeah. I love to sketch. I've done it lots. And unbeknownst to these guys here, I actually... I found photos. I stalked everybody on Facebook and managed to find a load of photos and then individual sketches. It was going to be a mass surprise, a page of a wall of everybody who contributed towards the Monsters of the Guild, a monster. And it was quite an undertaking. Didn't quite know what I was letting myself in for. But funnily enough, that progressed on to quite an interesting little guerrilla marketing ploy. Eventually, on one of the heads, I forget whose it was. It might have been Rob's actually. When I had these sketches on my iPad, I just sketched 3 tentacles on the head, and went, "Wow, that would be really, really cool if I'd done that for everybody." And I started transposing these tentacles onto all these heads, and I thought, "Wow, that's a really crazy looking wall of heads there." And then I turned to a friend of mine and said, "Could you animate these tentacles?" And he was like, "Yeah, of course I can." So he started animating the tentacles, and then I fed out these movie clips to everybody who contributed. They've got their sketched heads with 3 flying tentacles out their heads, and a lot of them are now used for their Facebook profile pictures and things like this. So we thought it would be a really interesting way of driving people's eyeballs towards the product when it became live. I think it worked out quite well. Everyone was really on board with it. It was quite fun.
Who doesn't want flying tentacles coming out of their head? Really?
Right.
Exactly.
It's great for great for advertising, but awful, we've discovered, for group Facebook chats. Though.
Oh.
Yeah, you have no idea who you're talking to.
No.
That seems like it would be a very valid point. We are coming up on the hour mark. If each of you want to just take a moment to maybe tell people where they can find you. I got all your Twitter handles in the description. There's a link to Monsters Without Borders in the description as well. But again, if you guys just want to, tell everyone who you are and where they can find you, and any parting words you want to leave.
People can find me on Twitter at PB Publishing 1. That's at PB Publishing 1, and come up for a chat. I'm always happy to chat design, happy to chat D&D, I'm happy to chat anything, just hit me up.
Yeah, and you can find me on Twitter at cute_life. You could also follow us on at Monsters of Guild. So, and yeah, ask us any questions about the product, and hopefully someone will be able to jump online and sort that out. Also, yeah, just search for Glen Cooper on the DMs Guild, and you'll be able to find some of my crazy contents. I created a product of 60 pages of Dungeons and Dragons doors, essentially. I've done all the sketches for them. They're trapped, they're locked, they're hidden, all kinds of crazy content in that. So yeah, see me on Twitter and I'll tell you all about it.
You can find all of my adventures and all of the freelance work I've done on DM's Guild. If you just search JVC Parry, you'll find it there, which is also my Twitter handle and my Facebook page, for however little I use the pair of them. And then if you want to watch something fun that Glen and I did the other day, you can hit up Mr. Tarask on YouTube. Glen and I were in a little actual play of something he did the other day, which was great fun.
And I can be found at all points internet by searching for ROB2E. Streaming on Twitch. I got a YouTube. I got Twitter. I got Facebook. I got Patreon. I mean, you can find me wherever you need to find me. And I love to talk to people about the DM's Guild and Fantasy Grounds and D&D. Less so lore, more so mechanics. So if you're looking for lore stuff, I'm not the guy to come find. But if you're looking for mechanic stuff, I'm your man.
Awesome.
And thanks, Dave. Thanks a lot, Dave, for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, mate.
Yeah, I appreciate all you guys coming on, and I appreciate everybody in the chat hanging out with us today. It's always a good time. And with that, guys, until next time, stay nerdy.